everyone, and welcome to the Northern Kentucky Spotlight Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Brookbank. Today, we are joined by two very special Chamber of Commerce guests, Brent Cooper, President and CEO, and Christie Rogers, Director of Special Events at NKYP. They will join us to talk about annual dinner. Thank you to our podcast sponsors, CVG, our title sponsor, C Crew Consulting, our digital sponsor, and our episode sponsors, Haran and Heartland Bank. Like I said, Brent and Christie are going to be talking about annual dinner coming up on September 15th. It's a really exciting event. I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about it because we have a whole segment dedicated to it. Brent will also stick around to talk about the great year that Northern Kentucky has had. He will give some infrastructure and some workforce updates, and he will talk about what he's looking forward to in the upcoming year in Northern Kentucky and at the Chamber. Now, let's go hear from our sponsors, meet our members of the week, and we'll meet you guys back here with our Chamber team.
CVG Airport is the lowest fare airport in the tri-state region with 54 nonstop flights and direct international service to 7 destinations, including Paris, France, and now home to both DHL's and Amazon's global cargo hubs. The airport is furthering its position as leader in aviation and is deeply committed to being an economic driver for the community. You can learn more and start your next adventure at cvgairport.com.
Ranking on Google Search and Maps is easy to understand, but hard to do. It requires constant effort and attention, uploading new photos, responding to Google reviews, writing weekly posts, and checking suggested updates. Google listing optimization takes experience and time, and there are no shortcuts. C Crew gives your Google My Business account the steady, consistent attention it needs to be effective, optimizing, updating, and expanding critical content every single week. From local retail stores to large regional networks, C Crew generates content, establishes benchmarks, and creates dramatic, measurable increases in engagement. So what can C Crew do for your business? More calls, more clicks, more clients.
Congratulations to our members of the week. You can learn more about these businesses by following the Northern Kentucky Chamber on social media, where we will highlight one of these businesses each day. Now, let's meet our members of the week. Northern Kentucky Sanitation District Number 1 provides Northern Kentucky with reliable and efficient wastewater and stormwater services. Tank has been an integral part of what keeps Northern Kentucky moving over the years and is celebrating a major milestone this year with its 50th anniversary. Mumbai is a German-owned, privately held, global automotive supply company. Thomas More University is a Catholic liberal arts university of the Diocese of Covington. Graydon strives to be Greater Cincinnati's most innovative, vibrant, and inclusive law firm, recognized by clients as an indispensable partner. Hi, everyone. I am joined by Brent Cooper, our President and CEO at the Chamber, and Christie Rogers. She is the Director of Special Events at NKYP. Thank you guys for joining us on the podcast today.
My pleasure. Absolutely. Happy to be here.
I know. And so we are going to talk about something really exciting, annual dinner. It is coming up on September 15th, and obviously you guys are really involved in that. So Christie, you want to start us off talking about it?
Sure, absolutely. So this is our biggest event of the year. 1,100 of your closest friends will be there on Thursday, September the 15th at the Northern Kentucky Convention Center. So we started off with a networking cocktail reception from 5 to 6:30. And then we get the program started at 6:30 where we hear from Brent and we hear from our incoming and outgoing board chairs and also honor some special award winners in the community. So it's an amazing time. We're happy to be back at capacity after a couple of weird years with the pandemic. So we just hope everybody comes out and joins us and then stays for a nightcap at our after party at the Metropolitan Club across the street. So
yeah, it is one of the biggest events of the year, kind of like you hinted at. Brent, why is this a can't-miss event for the business community?
Yeah, it's can't miss for a couple of things. One is the networking that Christie just mentioned. I mean, it's off the charts good. Everybody that's anybody is at the annual dinner. And, secondly, I think it's the award winners and recipients this year, and you get to hear from our past chair, which will be Garen Colvin from St. Elizabeth, and our new chair, John Hawkins from MPI. This award winners slate is off the charts good. Paul Verst, Bob Sathey, Leo Calderon is going to be honored. You look at our tourism folks that are being honored: Julie Kirkpatrick, Julie Calvert from Meet NKY and Visit Cincy. Look at the education folks that we're celebrating: the Ignite Institute and CovCAF for coming first and second in the world They're going to be getting our Image Maker Award. So it's just a terrific lineup. And Kristen Smitherman-Voltaire from Turner, who is our Volunteer of the Year, the Michelle winner. I mean, just what a terrific lineup. And so I think it's something that everybody wants to be a part of, and we're really excited to be celebrating everybody.
Yeah, that is so exciting. I know I love going. Personally, it was a lot of fun when I got to go last year. Touch a little bit about the passing of the gavel. You said incoming and outcoming chairs, so tell us a little bit more about that process.
Yeah, so Garen will be talking about kind of the year that was. What were all the things that we accomplished, and this is one of those years where I can't remember a time where Northern Kentucky got more done in 1 year in our Chamber of Commerce for sure. We're going to be celebrating a lot of wins, a lot of things that happened this past year. And then John Hawkins will be talking about the year that is to come and some of his vision for what he sees as board chair. And so those speeches are always well worth hearing because we'll also be sharing a lot of data and a lot of themes for the region. One of our strategic imperatives is aligning the region. And so they'll be talking a lot about that at the annual dinner.
And while it's a symbolic passing of the gavel, it's also a physical passing of the gavel. So if you've never been, we have the largest gavel in the entire world.
It's the Thor hammer. If you haven't seen it's huge.
I don't think it's in the Guinness Book of World Records, but it should be. So yeah, they will literally physically pass a large gavel. So it's an exciting moment.
Yeah, it's usually very fun. And talk about the theme this year. So I know we went back and forth about the theme. Last year was raising our glasses. What about this year?
Yeah, so, and I know Brent can talk about this as well, but our theme this year is Destination NKY. So as we all know, as Brent mentioned, we had some great wins this year, and really talking about how NKY is really the destination for business, for tourism, for economic growth, and it's really reflected in all of our award winners this year. So, Brent, do you want to add to that?
No, I think that's perfect. That's exactly well said. And I think we were talking about a theme of taking off, and we decided on Destination NKY because we've already taken off. And so this really is a celebration of how we are a destination for tourism, for education, economic development, and so forth.
Yeah, no, that is great. And is there anything else that people need to know about annual dinner? Obviously, buy tickets if you haven't already, because this one is a sellout event. But what else do people need to know?
Yeah, I would say you can go online to our website, nkychamber.com/annual dinner, for all the information on the award winners, all the information on registration. You can register as an individual. So if you just, want to come by yourself or one or two people, you can definitely do that. Obviously, if you want to buy a table, if your company wants to buy a table. And we do still have a little bit of time left for sponsorship. Obviously, this is a huge sponsorship opportunity. 1,100 people, anybody who's anybody is there. So if your company is interested in sponsorship, we can definitely get you signed up for that as well.
Well, and I would just add, we did sell out last year, and people were upset that they didn't get their registration. They were upset with me sometimes. So please register now so you get your name and your table all settled away.
All right. Well, thank you guys both so much for talking with our guests about annual dinner. I'm excited to see you guys there and whoever else joins us.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. I am back with Brent Cooper, and we are going to talk all things Northern Kentucky Chamber of Commerce. And we're going to talk a little bit more about annual dinner. I know we just touched on that, but before we get to that, we want to talk about this past year that we've just had in Northern Kentucky, and all the things that the Chamber has been a part of, from infrastructure to new companies to big events. So Brent, start us off. This has been a great year.
It's been one of the best years in Northern Kentucky history, and I think some people don't realize some of the things that are happening right now and have recently happened. But if you live and work in Northern Kentucky, you're starting to see it. Projects around the region, Turfway is about to open in September. The cranes that you see at the Ovation will continue. Major development there. The IRS site has now been demolished. We're about to see that. Bellevue just announced another big one yesterday with new development, apartments, homes, and so forth. And then you look at some of the advocacy things that we worked on this past year. And I did not mention Representative Sal Santoro, who's chair of House Transportation. He's going to be honored at our annual dinner. A lot of this wouldn't have happened without him, Senator McDaniel, a whole bunch of our Northern Kentucky caucus members, and obviously business civic leaders, all collectively advocating for infrastructure projects that are now going to be coming to fruition. Obviously, the Brent Spence Bridge, probably the biggest, and because the Brent Spence was shut down a while back, the 4th Street Bridge was impacted, the Roebling was impacted, and so forth. So that's a major project. We also got dollars in the works for 4th Street Bridge, 536, and a whole bunch of projects all around the region. Really a record for Northern Kentucky. And then you look at things like the income tax getting cut. So if you're a small business owner, you have now seen your income tax go from 6 to 5 and now to 4 next year. And there's a plan to get it down to 0, which is pretty amazing. And then you look at things like dollars for education for like NKU, performance-based funding. That was a huge financial win for NKU, and dual-based credits for Gateway Community Technical College, two of our premier institutions that we depend on for workforce.
Right.
So we were able to secure dollars for that. Those are all things that the Chamber advocated on, along with our Metro partners and the State Chamber and a whole bunch of business and civic leaders coming together. These were big deals for Northern Kentucky, and so we're going to celebrate all that at the annual dinner, and we're certainly talking a lot about it today. The last thing I'll mention is because of the work that was done on the unemployment insurance, something that we, again, lobbied for, small businesses around the region save between $70 and $75 a person. So if you have a small business with 10 employees, you save $750. Right. And that's something that, again, that we advocated on that has a big makes a big difference. And small businesses and large businesses have been getting refund checks this past year because they thought they were going to pay this much and they wound up paying this much. And so those are like little things that you may not notice, but when it starts to add up, it's big dollars for the region. So we're really thrilled to see some of these major projects come to fruition, things like the Brent Spence and some of these legislative wins that I think will really help our economy. And that's the mission of the Chamber.
Yeah, and it's been, like you said, a big year. We talk about the Brent Spence Bridge constantly. It's been something that Greater Cincinnati has been talking about for decades at this point. I think it's really interesting when you think about all this work that's being done across Northern Kentucky, and then looking at the Chamber and the work that we're doing to advocate for that. I think a lot of people don't really know, if they're not as involved with the Chamber as some of us are, they're not as close. When you're working on these projects, and touch a little bit on that community that you're working with, like these civic leaders, elected officials, other business community leaders, what's that like?
Yeah. So the Northern Kentucky Metro region is 36 cities and 3 counties. The main elected officials, Boone, Kent, and Campbell, the judge execs, the fiscal courts. It's a lot of communication, a lot of dialogue, and a lot of trying to get everybody to row in the same direction on major issues of the day. Brent Spence was one of those. It was a challenge for us all to finally come together. And it does really, truly take a village to make that happen. It could not have been done without the legislature, the support of the governor for sure, the support of all those officials I just mentioned. But the reverse happens too. When there are folks that disagree on a solution, things get delayed. And so we know that when Northern Kentucky agrees on something, we get it done. And so part of the Chamber's strategic imperatives this year is to align the region on major issues like that so that things can progress a lot quicker. A lot of people don't know what a Chamber of Commerce does. We lead and we connect and we advocate. And that advocate piece is a big part of it, telling the stories of the business community. We had to tell over and over again the impact of projects like the Brent Spence, the 4th Street Bridge, 536, and so forth, and the opportunities that are available to us that we can grow even faster. A lot of people don't know this, but the fastest growing part of Greater Cincinnati is Northern Kentucky. And Boone County grew 17%, and I think that's the fastest in the state. We certainly have the highest workforce participation rate at 70%. That's 10 points higher than the state average, 5 points higher than the national average. So we're growing in Northern Kentucky, and it takes infrastructure and good public policy to make us as competitive as possible. That's part of what the Chamber of Commerce does, is tell the stories of businesses, large and small businesses, and try to advance the economy. And then our leadership programs and all of our other programs that we do, the Eggs and Issues and the annual dinner and those kinds of things, help communicate out and help make businesses better businesses. So that's what we've been working on. Just a few things.
Just a couple of things. Just a few little punch list items. Nothing major at all. You touched on the strategic imperatives. Obviously, we're going into a new fiscal year. Can you touch on what the Chamber is trying to accomplish? I know we have our strategic imperatives. Touch on that for this upcoming year.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of our strategic imperatives is we want to grow our workforce, right? So that's grow NKY and all the partners that are working towards growing our regional outcomes through workforce. That's something that we champion. Workforce is the number one issue of all businesses in the region, large and small. Can't find enough people. And likewise, strategies for retaining workers. So our programs are really around talent attraction and retention. and support for growing the talent that we have. Very similarly and very tightly linked is building a diverse business community. I mean, that's something that we want to continue to champion. We did our very first Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion DEI Summit, the IDEA Summit last year. It was the first time that had happened here in Northern Kentucky. And so thanks to St. Elizabeth and Fifth Third, we were able to pull that off. And that was the first one of what I think will become many DE&I programs throughout the year and years to come. I look at when we did our first Women's Initiative breakfast, if you remember back a decade ago. Today it's going to be 800 women this year. And so very similarly, I think our DE&I efforts are going to continue to grow. And then programs like Encounter. That was another one that we kicked off this year and announced, and we're going to do a second cohort in the spring because the first one sold out and is doing so well. That is strictly around talent retention. So how do we keep people in the region? And we think one of those ways is to get them acclimated to what's going on in the region. These are the ways to get engaged. These are the cool places to go. These are some of the activities that are happening. And so the very first class is going to do one of their sessions, I know, at DBL Law, looking down at on the Roebling during Blink, so when Blink is going on. So just one example of the vibrancy that we're trying to show off here in the region, and we're very excited about Encounter. So that's just another piece. And then finally, the last strategic imperative is aligning the region on advocacy. I know I already talked about that,
right, but
that is a constant thing that you just constantly have to work out. We have to tell the stories, the issues that our business community is faced with. Delays due to infrastructure challenges, for sure. Issues of childcare, issues of bringing people here and getting more talent. Stories about how we can get more students engaged in work-based learning. Those are all the kinds of things that we're talking about every day. And so you'll hear us lead and connect and advocate throughout the year on programs like that.
Right. And one of the things I do want to mention, we do have a couple of DEI events coming up here in the next month or two. We have the DEI Summit Series. That's going to be with Tracy Stokes, once again, of St. Elizabeth, who has been great working with the Chamber on a lot of the events. We also have a really fun and exciting Global Experience Night with FC Cincinnati later in the year. So we have a lot of great DEI programming coming up. And Encounter NKY, for people who don't know, who are more familiar with Leadership NKY and those more standard things, can you touch on what makes Encounter NKY a little bit different than your standard Leadership NKY?
Yeah, so Leadership in Northern Kentucky is using the community as a classroom. So one day a month, you dedicate the entire day to going to see a particular topic. So on Health and Human Services Day, you might tour some of the nonprofits in the area. On Justice Day, you might sit in a jail cell and sit in on court. Government Day, you might actually go down to Frankfurt and see what's going on there and actually sit in the chambers where they debate issues. Encounter NKY, think of it as like a mini LNK. So it's a half a day a week for 3 months. And so they'll do more fun things. And again, if you were from out of the area and you wanted to learn about this area, these are things where we'll tour community organizations, where they'll get to meet some of those leaders and different groups, but also see restaurants and see the local places to visit, maybe tour the new Turfway, maybe see Blink from a different perspective. Those are all things that will happen during Encounter. And the idea, again, is that you'll be able to keep folks a lot longer because they'll get acclimated to the area sooner. I know at the Blink night, as an example, it's not going to be just the employees, but also their spouses or significant others will be invited because they're part of this too. We want to keep those families, those groups that are coming to the region.
We want you to stay in Northern Kentucky like the rest of us who have grown up here, have never left.
That's right. We're going to live, work, play, learn, and give back. That's who we are here in Northern Kentucky.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's awesome. One of the things I also want to ask you, because we've got so much programming coming up, what are you most looking forward to in the next fiscal year? What event that you maybe isn't firmly set or maybe is firmly set? What one are you looking forward to?
Well, obviously the annual dinner is the big one. I mean, that's the softball. But I mean, we do major events every month. Big ones like the Women's Initiative Breakfast with 800, the Outstanding Women Northern Kentucky 450. And then there are the Eggs and Issues programming. The one that's coming up for me, the Blink one that's coming up. I mean, that's a great conversation. And kind of see a behind-the-scenes look that you wouldn't get otherwise. And we try to have a fun one like Blink, and then maybe have a serious one on policy. So we've got a government forum coming up with Senator McConnell. We'll have State of Northern Kentucky with our judge execs. That's a regular dialogue every year. The economic preview that we do is always well attended, and that one, boy, did they get right. I mean, last year, Janet Hara talked from NKU talked about the issues of inflation that she was worried about, and boy, did that hit. And so those economic previews are really helpful for our businesses. And so those are just some of the programs I look forward to. I mean, our leadership programs are just so successful. But those other programs, those individual, you mentioned the DE&I programs, they can change your business and you can get connected with vendors and customers along the way. So I strongly recommend people try to attend one or two of them every month for sure.
Yeah. And before I let you go, one of the things that we constantly talk about on the podcast with a lot of our guests is workforce. What are you seeing? I know you're really super plugged into the community, obviously, as president and CEO of the chamber. One of the things, and we kind of touched on with Encounter NKY, that retention piece. What other things should people be looking out for, things that you can share your insight on right now?
Well, we're hearing a lot from members on issues of childcare, affordable, attainable housing. Right. The issue of immigration is a hot topic for businesses right now. That not illegal immigration, but legal immigration. And on all of those fronts, whether it's childcare, affordable housing, so forth, it's how do we bring people here and support the people that we have and grow our economy. We have open positions at companies throughout the region. They can't find enough people. And if we don't have affordable, attainable housing, that's a hot topic. You can't grow if you don't have some place for people to live. And so issues of health, education, and so forth all tie into our community. We have to constantly have those conversations. I don't know that anybody's cracked the code for affordable, attainable housing yet, but we have to have real serious conversations. We've lost some apartment complexes in Covington and in Newport in the urban core. I know some companies are actually building on-site housing for employees. I know other companies are actually paying for transportation for their employees. These are strategies and ideas that are coming up, and I know businesses are getting really creative on their benefits package to really try to retain folks. So those are the kinds of conversations that we're going to have to continue to have in order to continue to grow. We have a growing, thriving business climate and a really exciting community.
Yeah.
But we've got challenges just like every other area of the country, especially on workforce. So I think the more that we can help our businesses be creative, the more likely they are to succeed. And we've got to just continuously remind people, look, you may think you're in the IT business or manufacturing or logistics or healthcare and so forth. You're actually in the people business.
Yeah.
And I think if we can get people to that place and really focus on retention and talent attraction in addition to growing, I think we're going to be so much more ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things, last thing I think that I have in my head so far is you mentioned with the annual dinner theme that you had thought about, taking off.
Yeah.
And pivoted it to this destination, Northern Kentucky, which I think is really lovely, especially when we're talking about all these things that we're already doing, all the things that we've already accomplished. Talk a little bit more about that theme and that idea that Northern Kentucky is a destination.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are. I mean, that's the thing. I thought that was such a funny conversation when we were talking about the taking off theme for the annual dinner. I was like, we're not taking off. We're there. Like we've already taken off. Yeah. Let's talk about where we are. I mean, look at it from a tourism perspective. We're leading all of our peer cities in hotel stays, and Meet NKY, Visit Cincy, from my perspective, are crushing it. Mm-hmm. The Beeline, we've got a top 10 aquarium. What's about to happen with Turfway? I don't think people realize some of these things that are happening are going to be life-altering. The Ovation, our kids are going to remember when these places were built. And so look at it from a tourism perspective, we are a destination. Look at it from a business perspective. I mean, look at all of the different players that we have, from St. Elizabeth and City and Fidelity to DHL and Amazon. Our airport has more flights and lower cost flights than Columbus and Indianapolis and Louisville, Lexington and Dayton. We are the hub and a really wonderful amenity for our region. So we're constantly reminding people about that. This is the place to be for business. We're 20% of Greater Cincinnati, but 35% of the manufacturing jobs. We build things here. We are a logistics hub. And so those are things we all champion. We're an education destination, and this is something we got to remind people. Do we have challenges? Absolutely. We've got our fair share of challenges. But you look at the 55,000 of the 70,000 kids in Northern Kentucky, are in districts that are ranked in the top 25 out of 171. So there's 171 school districts, state of Kentucky. We've got 6 of them in the top 25. Mm-hmm. And 2 of them we're going to be celebrating. 2 of those schools we're going to be celebrating at the annual dinner as part of our Image Maker, because the robotics team for Ignite Institute came in number 1 in the world. And the number 2 team in a rubber match was Cuff Cath, and they're 15 minutes apart. And Cuff Cath actually won the state of Kentucky. So it's, these are excellent robotics teams. The STEM technology that's going on here is amazing. Yeah. And the STEM education that our kids are getting. So we're an education destination. And then when you look at health, and you look at the new cancer center, and you look at the efforts where our communities are actually starting to take steps to reduce smoking, to embrace science and vaccines and so forth. That's what we need here in Northern Kentucky, more of. And so we're a destination for health and for so many areas of the business community that we champion and talk about every day.
Yeah, I think you raised a couple of really interesting points. It's funny, I think about growing up in Northern Kentucky. I've been here nearly my whole life. I remember when the Newport Aquarium was built, and remembering and seeing Newport on the levee grow and change so drastically in the past however many years it's been since it opened, and just seeing that area of Newport become that destination. I go to the box park, I have a drink with my coworkers or with my pals. We just had the NGLAs there, and it was beautiful. And then I was looking at a band that I announced concert dates, and I was scrolling through, I was like, Cincinnati, Newport, Kentucky popped up. It's a major tour for a band that I've seen, across the river in Cincinnati more than once. And when I saw Newport, Kentucky, I was like, that's so crazy to think that now we have this venue that is competing with this, with a Riverbend or with other venues that we've had in Cincinnati that have been, our staples. And now Northern Kentucky is getting a piece of that. It's really interesting to think about how much things have changed, and to see how much the Chamber has been involved with a lot of these changes.
Well, for sure. And with our partners with Triad, Meet NKY, One NKY, Regional Alliance, all of us, Horizon Funds, now that I've started naming, I'm going to get in trouble, but they all play a pivotal role in that. And we're going to continue this coming year to work on our brand, telling our story. We are a key part of Greater Cincinnati. I say where horses and bourbon meet chili in a Super Bowl team. That is Northern Kentucky, Greater Cincinnati. And so we embrace that. And we've got as you just mentioned, we've got so many things coming and so many things yet to come. One of the stories we tell is when people come here, we compare ourselves to other metro areas around the country. And if you live in LA and you want to go to a pro game, it's 45 minutes to an hour to go to a pro baseball game. If you live in Covington, you can walk there. If you live in Newport, if you live in the majority of cities in Northern Kentucky, Florence, it's 20 minutes, right, to get to a game. And so we have all these wonderful amenities: pro football, pro soccer, pro baseball. We have Broadway shows. We have a symphony. We have a ballet. We have a world-class art museum, a fantastic zoo, a top 10 aquarium. We have all these things right here. We have to remind ourselves that not only are these wonderful amenities, but they're very close. So we have this lifestyle that's we're able to enjoy our life a little bit, in my opinion, better than some of these other cities around the country. Even though they have different things and wonderful things for sure, we have to just continuously celebrate us. And I think we have some amazing things happening. And so part of the Chamber of Commerce role is to cheerlead and remind not only those people visiting, but ourselves of all the great things that we have. And so that's what we're looking forward to this coming year. And it's a great time to be in Northern Kentucky for sure.
Yeah. Well, Brent, thank you so much. I don't think I have any other questions after that beautiful ending, but is there anything else that you want to talk about the Chamber, about this upcoming year?
No, I'll just say, we have a wonderful board, and I want to give a shout out to our board and our staff. A lot of people don't know our board it's a big board. We have a very diverse board. So we have, in fact, the most diverse board in Northern Kentucky's history. And it's not just diverse with race and ethnicity. It's also diverse we have manufacturers, health, IT, finance, logistics, big business and small business. I think a lot of people think we're a big business chamber. The vast majority of our members are small businesses. I think it's 85%.
Yeah.
And our board is really a makeup of that. And I look at guys like Gabby from Global Business or Brady Jolly at Jolly Plumbing. We've got construction. Yes, we have the Paul Hemmers of the world and the Garen Colvin, the largest employer in Northern Kentucky, on the board for sure. But our new chair, John Hawkins, is a small business guy. He came from Procter & Gamble, but he's been doing consulting work and serving both big and small businesses for a long time. So when you look at our board, they're very engaged. So I just want to give them a big shout out and let people know who they are that's representing folks, and our staff too. I mean, we just have a wonderful team from Gene Kirshner, Lynn Abel, and all the way down, and Christie Rogers doing the annual dinner. I mean, we just have such a great group. I hope everybody stops by the chamber this year, is a part of our events, and definitely gets engaged. It's a great time.
Yeah, it's awesome here. I love it personally, podcasting here 3 days a week. But everyone, thank you so much for joining us. And Brent, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
We're going.
Hi, I'm Shannon Schumacher, Account Executive, Kentucky Market Leader. At Haran, we champion bold innovation to help employers and individuals thrive. As an industry thought leader, we explore new horizons in healthcare, benefits, employee engagement, and wellness. We work harder to deliver all the strategic benefits, planning, and execution you expect from a true partner. And we do it with laser focus on your short and long-term outcomes to help manage your benefits while improving your employee experience.
So Heartland is celebrating its 110th anniversary this year. Recently, we partnered with the Kinkle family and the Fisher family in northern Kentucky, Boone, Kenton, and Campbell counties. And we have 3 offices there to serve the northern Kentucky region. Just remember, when the economy heats up, come see us at Heartland Bank, where banking really feels good.
Come on over to Heartland, where banking feels good.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Brent. It's always so much fun to talk to him about Northern Kentucky and the things that the chamber is doing. It's really exciting to get a few more really in-depth insights from him. I wish we could have him on the podcast more. I don't think that we got any dad jokes this time around, but hopefully you will join us at annual dinner and you will get your fill there. Don't forget, annual dinner is on September 15th. Like we said, it's a sellout event. We're at full capacity. Don't miss your chance to get your tickets. You can get those at nkychamber.com/events. Thank you again to our sponsors, CVG, C-Crew Consulting, Haran, and Heartland Bank. And finally, if you are a member who would like to be featured on the podcast, or if you're interested in becoming a member of the Northern Kentucky Chamber, please reach out to Lynn Ablin. You can find her contact information in our staff directory at nkychamber.com, or if you are watching the podcast, you can see that information on your screen. Thank you guys again. I will talk to you next week.